Hi everyone, welcome in Cannes, welcome at MIPCOM. My name is Bouchet. I'm head of virtual reality and innovation at Orange Group, based in Paris. And I'm also the founder of the think tank, French think tank Uni-VR. And I'm very glad to moderate this panel today on virtual reality. Where we're going to talk about the future of virtual reality and maybe understand how lighting, eye tracking, and interactive storytelling will be probably the key to the future for this topic. So let me introduce the panelists today. We'll start with Emilie Joly from apelab, based in Switzerland. Hervé Fontaine, Vice President of HTC Vive, in charge of virtuality and B2B developments. And Wilfried van Baelen from Belgium and the CEO of Auro technologies. So we will start today with Emilie. Emilie, if you want to introduce yourself and your company.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm Emilie Joly. I'm the CEO of apelab. apelab is a production company founded in 2014, and our focus is interactive virtual reality entertainment. I'm going to show you just a quick video of what we do at the studio. Our focus for the past 2 years has been creating a viable production pipeline for interactive VR development. So we started creating spatial stories in 2012. Spatial stories was a way for us to define our values and our philosophy around VR, which is mixing workflow from video games and film together, which is kind of a hard thing to do. And we've been working on this for quite a bit. It's a series of original content and also a set of tools and a framework for creating VR. We started with film production pipeline very quickly. It's a very simple way of putting it. It's quite linear. You do storyboard, previs, you start shooting, and then you screen your film. In interactive storytelling, it's all different. You have an idea, you want to try and tell a story, you prototype it very quickly, you test it. The first time it usually sucks, and then you try again the next day. And it's very iterative as a concept. So we've been trying to mix those two together to find a new way of creating and conceptualizing. In film, you're going to use cameras to capture the environment. We're using game engines to create the stories. So Unity and Unreal Engine are the two core software that we use to create content. As I said, when you're in film, you have the camera. The camera is helping you tell the story. In our case, it's the user, and the user can interact with the story, and he usually never does what you want him to do, and that's very important to know. So your goal as a storyteller or as a designer is to build a world in which he will be able to interact, what I like to call organic narrative. To create an organic narrative, you're going to need interactive objects. Interactive objects can be props, they can be environment, they can be characters, they can be anything. And those interactive objects have sounds, animation, and they will react depending on the user inputs that you have available, which can be positional tracking, gaze, controllers, maybe soon facial motion capture and eye tracking. This is a just very quick example of a project called Break a Leg, where you're an illusionist on a stage. And at one point, you have to choose an assistant on the stage to come up with you and be your assistant during the show. To do this, we've been using multiple inputs to create a natural user interaction for the character to come up on stage. So the position of the user in space, where he looks, if he's looking at you, or at you, and then the controllers as well to create that. Another very quick example, this is anime in VR that we've been building, a series in which the characters in the environment react differently depending on where you look. So it looks like a pretty normal animation film when you look at it from the outside, but from the inside, it looks a bit like this. All of these are the interactive objects inside one scene. And that is our script. So the script writing in VR and interactive VR is very complex. And this ended up being very crazy for us to think of all the different possibilities, all of the different actions, and how do you actually write for interactive VR. When we started, we had only one tech director, so we're a startup, we're 6 people, and then basically he had to do all the work, and that really wasn't working for us. So that's how we started building the spatial stories framework. What we're working on now is we have an SDK that we've built, and we are working now on external application, very similar to Final Draft that you would use for film writing. But we could call it Final Draft of VR, but we're trying to think about how we're going to write and how we're going to prototype for virtual reality. And make sure that the storyteller, the designer, the engineer can work together, they can share their ideas, and they can work in real time and alter the story without having to go into coding or anything like that. I'm not going to go much deeper on what we're doing because the others have to talk as well. So
thank you,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Emilie. Hervé Fontaine from HTC.
Yes, so welcome everybody. I just wanted to I thought I need to position the different VR experience because I realize maybe not everybody might be familiar. So just to make it simple, VR has a number of different level of experience, and to simplify, you could say it starts from very entry. Let's say what you have with a so-called Google Cardboard, which is mostly a panoramic video. So if you move your head, you feel you're in, you like in reality, you're kind of in a volume video. And then it goes all the way up to the HTC Vive experience, where you simply feel you're in another world, which means you are completely in a world that you can move in. You can completely move, you can stand up, you can move, you can go under the table. So you're free as if you were somewhere else. You feel it's real. So that's the kind of gradient you have. Okay? So as HTC, we've been very focused into that kind of ultimate dream, the ambitions that you just feel you somewhere else, and it's great. Yeah? And then it all started from gaming, we all know that. But I think it's clear for everybody the potential of VR is far broader from gaming. So after 6 months of business, selling the product and supporting our partner Valve, so with the online store Steam, we decided now it's time as well to go to the next level and then to really push content beyond gaming. So we've just launched a new online store that comes on the top of the Steam store. That's called Viveport, and the focus is non-gaming content because Steam is already doing a great job on gaming. So that's what we wanted to show some. You could see that the person that was in, you would say, virtual reality, she was simply feeling she was in somewhere else. She was in another reality because she could see, she could move, she could act. She didn't have the perception anymore about the living room that was around. That's really the dream that we've been trying to reproduce for quite some time. Hollywood have done a great job to try to make us feel that we're with panoramic skiing, we're somewhere else, but we could never get there. And virtual reality is now getting us to a time where it is going to be possible. So what are we doing to be able to offer to a content producers a market that makes sense for them, a market that will allow them to grow, to recoup their money, is this store. So you could see it looks, that's where it looks either on a PC or that where it looks when you're with the HTC Vive. It's pretty simple. We can highlight different content, and you see things that really don't look like game. You see, La Péri is really a ballet experience that is very artistic, and when you get out of it, you really feel you've been to a great piece of entertainment. But you were part of it somehow. Yeah, you didn't change the story, but you've been running that story. You were part of it, and that's very impressive. But you see other content. You see the blue. You would say is a kind of discovery, like you're under the water. And you can really discover what the life is there. You see on the far right Apollo 11. Apollo 11 is a kind of, it's between education and entertainment. So it helps you to live again what was the experience of all the Apollo 11 adventure. From that political part, with transporting you into living room of that time where you see Kennedy's speech and with the half ambitious, half politic objectives that were behind, and then it actually transports you to a full VR experience where you become the pilot who's going to land the module on the moon, if you don't crash it. So it really allows to do things that you couldn't do before. So Viveport is focused on beyond gaming. Why do we really believe this has such an opportunity in VR? We just summed up a bit. You see, we had a PC, then the web came, and it really revolutionized the way we could access and deal with information. Then touchscreens came. Suddenly we could do so much more with information. But we feel that virtual reality is even a bigger step in a revolution. Why? Because it completely fools your brain. You suddenly feel you're somewhere else. And when you do that, that means you create emotions. And between when you have a flat screen, you can't really create emotion. You don't really act on that. But in VR, you can really take over the brain, basically. So you create emotion that at a level we could never do before. So what are we focusing on? We've tried to look at it from a consumer. So really looking at things like, I like to discover things. I like to create. So to make sculptures, to make the drawings, or social. It was mentioned in a session before, VR is super social. So you want to connect. So the Vive is ready for that. The Vive has a microphone. The Vive can interact with your phone. So connecting will be really very important. Or watch. There is also a lot of market for purely, I would say, spectating experience. This was a bit what was mentioned before by Mimesis, the typical example. And then let's not forget shopping. Shopping is going to come big. So a few examples about what change that bring. If you think about education, for example, the potential is huge. We all know that kind of rule that after a couple of weeks, you kind of remember about 10% that you listened to, but you remember 90% of what you have done, what you've experienced. So VR has that possibility to multiply completely the number of times where you can learn through experience rather than learn through listening. And the great thing is that it can be distant. So you can really have a university that is online, that is running a class where students are in India, in Los Angeles, in China, in Paris. So they just distribute it. But the teacher can ask 2 or 3 of them to come to the front and then to work together on the board. So VR has that potential. You can try it if you want. Just say, if you have access to an HTC Vive system, just download Engage, which is the first VR university platforms. It's in beta today, and you can try it simple. It has a lot of other potential. If you think about creativity, you can design, you can sketch, but you are in your piece of art. You can go around, you can go inside you. So it is very, very different than taking a white sheet and sketching, because you can really be part of it. And then I think I was mentioning before, for all of you, those of you who have tried already, you've seen that it really creates emotions to a level that is unprecedented, and that has a huge potential. So the only thing I would like to say that if you haven't tried such an experience with the Vive, don't think that you know VR if you've just only tried like a mobile VR, but really try it for yourself. You'll see how far they can go, and just make your own projection about what technology does every 2 years, and you can see it will really be for everybody. So as a last point, I would say that what are we doing really to try to create a workable market for the content producer? We just announced on Friday in China, that we're taking the steps to, on one side, in China, to launch Viveport Mobile, so Viveport M. So particularly because, as you might know, stores like Google Play are now available in China. So Viveport M will take the leadership to promote content for mobile VR in China. The second thing is that we also realize that there is a lot of location-based VR. Yeah? So basically, whether it's internet cafe or various VR arcades that are really coming up, both in China, but actually in Europe, in the US as well. And but today it's quite difficult to have content and license to do that. So we are launching the Viveport Arcade, starting from China and Taiwan, but that will come worldwide in order to provide an easy to operate one-stop contact for those arcades.
How many arcades cafe in China?
So first. Well, I think there is about 10,000 internet cafe in China not for the whole, but for the largest one, okay. So Ocean One, we've partnered with. And out of that, the plan is to have 1,000. I don't exactly know how, but there must be already more than 500 that are in operation now. But we're going to 1,000 of deployment.
Okay, thank you, Hervé. Now, Wilfried, what about sounds in VR?
Yeah, a small introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Welcome. Auro Technologies, you heard probably about the Auro 3D format. Yeah, Auro Technologies, the company is established in 2010 with a global presence around the globe. Yeah, it's a spin-off of the Galaxy Studios group, in which we do already for years. So we are very known, let's say, for the quality and sound mainly. Yeah, but we do film producing. We had 2 years now in a row here, like on the film festival, the final film festival, one of our movies here, as well as an Oscar nominations for movies. So, but mainly we are known for, let's say, for the establishment of the Auro 3D format. Yeah, taking you a little bit, let's see how big this momentum is we are going through. If you see 140 years, 150 years ago, it started with mono. It took about 50 years to add one channel. And then again, it took another 50 years to add the second dimension. And it was marketed to us that surround sound is 3D sound. But in fact, it is missing height. And when I launched, let's say, that word immersive sound as a new format, or let's say it's a new generic term, now it becomes more the generic term for sound in 3D. Yeah, that's what it is in fact. Yeah, it's very obvious, but it's important to sound. Let's say it's all about storytelling, films, games, movies. Yeah, the more we hear, the more we can feel. It is especially that hearing which is creating that subconscious emotion. It's like George Lucas said. Sound is at least 50% of the movie experience, but is the same, let's say, in VR. Yeah. A little bit history. So I invented that format in 2005. It took me about 5 years to develop all the technology about it. George Lucas, he heard it in 2011. He said, this is really a game changer in the industry. So he was the first to install it. Whole Hollywood followed. Barco followed. Let's say Barco installed now 600 theaters worldwide. Yeah, and a lot of content makers. So now we 3 years ago we went into the consumer market. Yeah, and let's say we have a lot of success because of these reasons. Yeah, the reason why people choose for the format is mainly because of the sound quality, the most natural sound quality, lowest cost, highest efficiency in implementation, compatible with all formats in the market. Yeah. What is our differentiator? Mainly, we take a very higher resolution in the vertical axis of sound, and that's the key. I do not want to become too technical, but let's say typically very important is the ear level sounds. But most important, what people don't believe is people think that sound has to come suddenly from overhead, but we are less sensitive as sounds coming from overhead, and there are less reflections as well. Most, let's say, that vertical stereo field all around us, in the way that it is defined in the Auro 3D format, that makes the difference. And let's say, of course, the third layer is more for effects and flyovers. The idea from the beginning is it is a one cross-market solution for all industries. Yeah? We have now the first cars already on the market, Porsche is already out there, mobile devices, cinema, so we are in all these platforms already in the market with a full ecosystem. So the tools for the content creation, the technology to bring it completely to all markets. Yeah? It started all in cinema. Typically, if you don't have cinema, it's hard to, let's say, to come with a new audio format. Yeah, we have more than 600 theaters committed, installed worldwide, more than 200 movies worldwide, not only from Hollywood, but as well all local productions, India, Russia, China. So they are everywhere. Yeah. We are not only, we have the support from all major studios in Hollywood. They have at least 2 or 3 mixing stages with Auro 3D. Yeah. Music is very important. Now, we are the only immersive sound format in the market that can maintain the workflow for music. Mastering, so the final process, is one of the most important one, and our format is the only one who can maintain that. Object-based technology formats cannot, although we have as well object-based technology. Yeah. We have more than 20,000 home cinemas in the meantime installed worldwide, yeah, supported by many brands, more coming up. We have now the first 1 million mobile phones in the market with our technology on, so people can hear as consumers as well what Auro 3D does just on standard headphones. We are working as well on solutions for virtual and augmented reality. I think this software from us is, it's, let's say, an algorithm, does really wonders for creating the immersive experience. Yeah. Our technology is integrated in the WISE. Probably a lot of you know that. Let's say that middleware function, yeah, in which, let's say, that is a key part of, let's say, creating content, and which is in fact in the in PlayStation, in PS, in Xbox, Android platforms, so it's everywhere. Yeah. So in fact, we are very focused on this Auro 3D thing, and there's a lot of things coming.
Thank you, Wilfried. Very nice. Just maybe one question. We used to say in traditional media environments that story is king. Okay. What happens in virtual reality? Can we say that interactivity is the queen? Emilie? Are you the queen?
I don't know. I'd say the user is the queen, but I'm also a very big advocate of saying that VR is its own medium, and that we should definitely look at it almost as a blank slate and get inspired by architecture, film, games, and everything around it, and explore what it is and what interactivity is at the same time.
It's a new grammar, so you need to learn and understand what would be this new grammar that you experiment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be inspired by all the other media, but it's really its own, and there's a lot to rethink and to think about now. So, including interactivity and the way we tell stories, obviously, and other domains as well.
And you, Wilfried, when develop audio systems like binaural audio and so on, what is the world in the storytelling? What is the world of the sound?
There are like 3 main categories, but let's say in sound I see mainly 2 different ones. The ones where we call it the linear format, yeah, where you have control yourself over, let's say, creating it in post-production. And there is a place where you easily, let's say, can make the best audio experience. And typically you can enhance the, let's say, the immersive experience much more because you have control over it. Yeah? It's much more difficult in a non-linear thing, and that's due to DSP power and due to the fact a lot of people don't realize it perhaps, but 90% from what we hear, even if you hear you talking to me now, are the reflections. And if you cannot capture and reproduce these reflections, and let's say in game it became very clear, you have all these objects and what they're missing is all the reflections. So typically it sounds, your brain is immediately informed, is like completely fake. And that's the big challenge, because you need a lot of DSP power to create something like that in real time.
And you, Hervé, what are the tools and solutions that you provide to your clients and customers around audio and interactivity?
So in terms of audio, I would say no, we don't develop audio technologies, but we obviously use them. But I just want to stress, yes, audio, 3D audio is an enormous enhancer of the experience and the sense of immersion. Because of course we don't realize it, but when we move, whether we move fast or not, and so actually we don't hear the same way the sound change, and you actually need to reproduce that in VR as well, because particularly with the HTC Vive, you're moving. Yeah. So and you can move, fast, quick, and then you have both, we say, physical movement within that kind of, 4x4 meter in U3, but you also have teleportation when you go a lot further. And then you need to simulate as if it was real. But the sound is really fantastic in the impression. And I'll move back again. I'll mention again for all those who want to try that you had a great example in this La Péri, which is a kind of ballet experience, and you can really see how the sounds goes around you with the dancers, with the flowers that are flying, and they kind of shadowing the sound. So it gives a very, very good example how important the sound is.
George Lucas once said in the movie, sound is at least 50% of the movie experience, but I think in VR it's even more important.
I think it's at least 80, mostly. I don't know, it's a lot. It's really...
It is the weakest part on all the VR demos I've seen so far. It's always the thing that takes you out of the experience.
So you need to try that one.
Yeah.
Probably the sound is part of the narration, yes. and we need to find new people who are developing this kind of narration where the sound is very important in the story.
The game engines already spatialize sound in some way, so you can put localized sound in objects, but it's not near perfect yet at all. But it's already something that you can use to drive the attention as well, because your user is everywhere. So you need to drive attention and take care of the subtleties of the sound, because that's making the experience a lot more immersive when the sound is done right in space.
For the technologies, I want to say, we used to say that for VR you need a very good graphic card, and we think it's just to compute the image. But actually, the graphic cards also compute the sound in the same way. So they're now more and more physical models to where you, depending on the material, so you say that this is wood, this is stone, and so on, which are really going to simulate what would have been the sound reflection if it was real. So really physics simulation engines.
But let's say to do that properly, the DSP power needed is enormous.
Yeah.
In fact, to do it properly, we need about 10,000 times the power of a MacBook Pro. Then it's the level, then it becomes really realistic. So there's a lot of challenge and a lot of development needed, let's say, to bring this, let's say, in the market that is, let's say, creating that experience that we as human beings are used to hear.
Emilie, I think you're working on tools at apelab. So do you have a few words on that?
Yeah, well, we are using game engines as the core way to create the content, because they're doing all the rendering for us, and that's a lot easier. So we're not creating our own engine, but what we're mostly working on is ways to script write and to prototype in VR quicker, and to share that with the multiple people around. So you can create your interactive objects very simply, you can sketch your scenes, and all that is connected in real time to the engine, and that really simplifies. You can also put the sound, decide where the sound is, etc. And then that really helps us to work, especially with the script writer, who it's very difficult for them to create in a linear way. It's impossible, actually. So you really need to have this interactive side embedded inside the tool. So that's quite our focus right now.
Okay, I think time is over. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Hervé. Thank you, Emilie. Thank you, Wilfried. If you have some questions, we can ask a question just outside. Thank you.